everybody asked me, like, how'd you get out of that closet? Like, how'd you go from country club, gold card, living across the street from Kevin Garnett? Like, how'd you go that to the closet? And I said, bad choices. And more importantly, playing the victim. But they asked me how I got out of that closet. And I said, my default mechanism is work. It's always been that, work.
This is the Multifamily Journey Podcast, show 34.
You're listening to the Multifamily Journey Podcast. In this show, you'll hear industry experts share tips of success and failure from their real estate investing journeys. You'll get a transparent look behind the curtain while you learn to fulfill the lifestyle you want to live and achieve your wealth goals. Get ready for the journey to financial freedom through investing in multifamily real estate. Here's your host, Blake Dailey.
Hey, what's up, Multifamily Journey listeners? This is your host, Blake Dailey. I hope you're all having a good day today because I'm pumped to bring you guys another good episode. Got Austin Linney on the show today. He's a real estate investor, Airbnb specialist, mindset coach now, just killing it, doing a lot of cool things. And I think you guys are really going to like this show. I know personally, it was fun to have this conversation with Austin, dig into some of the things we talked about. We actually kind of broke apart some of the things that have been holding me back and kind of some of the things he does on the mindset side. So I think this will be really valuable there. And then we dig into the real estate stuff, and you guys are going to love that with some of the commercial Airbnb projects he's been doing. So we dig into the mindset, how to set and follow your goals, which I know I've been guilty of, being caught up in external factors and chasing the wrong things sometimes. So I think this will be a good show to just kind of reset, think about where you're heading, what you're actually aiming for, and what the end goal is for you. And if your goals, if your actions aren't aligned with those goals, maybe it's time to rethink those. I know I have been recently. And then, like I was talking about, that really awesome Airbnb strategy. It's kind of like the commercial Airbnb, which I'm doing myself right now on the 8-unit rehab, which is giving me more headaches than Advil can take out, but battling through that and then actually looking to do some more. So I've reshifted my focus into that area as well. So I really like this show. I think you guys aren't going to like it. So I'm not going to talk too much and we'll just get right into it today. So let's get into the show. Austin, welcome to the show. It's good to have you.
Good to be here, man. I appreciate it, dude. If our pre-combo is going to be any indication, it's going to be a great podcast.
I know, man. I should have started recording earlier. We were getting out into all kinds of good stuff, from short-term rentals to conversions to building and new builds and lots of everything. So that was good stuff. But for those of you, for those that don't know you, so you're a real estate investor and a performance coach, but what came first and how'd you get started?
You know what came first? The drug addict. That came first.
Okay, not what I was expecting.
Yeah, I told you I was going to come in hot. When I was 17, my parents got divorced. I was living in Sugar Land, Houston, Texas. My mom said, it was either military school or you had to move out to the country where she was raised. And so I thought, well, how bad can the country be? I guess I'll go out that way. So I went out to Hampshire, Fannett, Texas, which it sounds just like you think it sounds. I went from 4,000 kids in my class living on a golf course to 100 kids in my class. And everybody hunted ducks and they wore camo and I didn't know where the hell I was. And
my kind of place.
Yeah. It was a good time. I learned how to drink. I'll tell you that much right now. So long story short, I got a job in the restaurant business at 18. And if anybody knows the restaurant business back in the day, it was fueled up with alcohol and drugs. I got addicted to cocaine, which led into methamphetamines, and kind of was spiraling. And a bunch of bad things happened, and basically my parents were done with me. My mom threw my clothes out on the porch, and my dad cut me off the bills he was paying, and they said, figure it out. And I cried like a little baby for a good 3 hours at 21. I had a good friend pick me up, a mentor of mine that I look up to this day, and he said, hey man, enough. Figure it out. Like, this isn't the end of the world. And he basically called a friend And I got a job laying brick and tile in the middle of the Texas summer. This guy picked me up at 5 a.m., dropped me off at 6 o'clock at night. I worked 5 days a week, sometimes Saturday, and I had nowhere to live. So I had my best friend's brother had a house, and he said, listen, it's nothing special. But he said, you could stay here. And where he said, stay here, that was the closet underneath the stairs. I slept on a. This
is a real Harry Potter scenario.
I slept on a single mattress underneath the stairs with a bag of clothes and a fan. I lived off of $40 a month in ham sandwiches and ramen noodles, and I worked my ass off. And it's funny, as I tell this story over and over again, I forget that on my lunch break, I used to sit in the homes that we were remodeling, and I used to read books. And I remember reading the story of Lance Armstrong, and I remember the inspiration I felt, and it's like flooding back to me as I'm saying the story right now. And, everybody asked me, like, how'd you get out of that closet? Like, how'd you go from country club, gold card, living across the street from Kevin Garnett? Like, how'd you go to the closet? And I said, bad choices. And more importantly, playing the victim. But they asked me how I got out of that closet. And I said, my default mechanism is work. It's always been that work, like work your way out of your situation, no matter what you got there, how'd you got there. So I saved up enough money. I bought my grandmother's Explorer, and I got my restaurant job back and proceeded to run away from that closet for the better part of my life. I kicked the hard drugs, but then I became a functioning alcoholic for 20 years and decided after I joined a mastermind 2 years ago, 2 years and 3 months, I joined a mastermind, started a Airbnb company with two gentlemen in the mastermind who were recovering alcoholics. And it was the first time in my life I was around successful men that were sober. I spent my whole life in the restaurant business. It's totally acceptable. And I've been sober 2 years and 3 months. I've lost 70 pounds. And I totally flipped my entire life around. And it hasn't been easy since I got sober. But it's wild, man. But it's mine. It's all of mine. My faults, my weaknesses, my strengths, everything is me. And I find so much joy into being able, like I had, 9 coaching calls today. Is my coaching day. I had so much joy being able to support people in their journey and be able to live through the stuff that I've been through to give them a cool perspective.
Yeah, that's wild. From coming from, what sounds to be like living the good life on a good track, good parents, gonna probably go to college and, become an accountant or something. And then to living in a closet and working for $40 a week. That's crazy. And I feel like some parts of your story, like I'm familiar with growing up dealing with like drug and alcohol abuse at home, not myself, but seeing it and seeing the effects that has on people. And it's crazy, man. It changes everything. You said it wasn't easy to get to the point where you are now to you're sober, but no part of that journey is easy. So what was it that stuck out to you to say, all right, 20 years, drug abuse and then 20 years of being an alcoholic? What really made the shift for you after all that time to just, all right, cleanse, now 2 years sober and doing the right things, building a real estate portfolio, building businesses and everything else now?
It's really easy to be surrounded by the same people that are doing the same things you are because nobody's calling you out. And it's not until you get around mentors that see greatness inside of you that gets you in the face of saying, man, hey, dude, you're better than this, right? And more importantly, like I had to believe it in myself first, right? Or I had to borrow the belief from somebody else. One of my favorite lines in the entire world that one of my friends says is sometimes you don't believe in yourself enough to change, but you have to borrow the belief that loved ones have in you long enough for you to believe it in yourself.
Yeah.
And
kind of just adopt that feeling from others.
And exactly. And I got around these guys. I had 3 Airbnbs at the time, and I got around these guys who had like 30 and 130. And I was like, fuck, I was like, damn. And not only that, here's the scary thing, a lot more. And they didn't seem as stressed as I was with 3. And I was like, okay.
It's funny how that works out, right? Like people with bigger portfolios, way more problems, way more money. And you like think about the Jay-Z song, Mo Money, Mo Problems. But it's like they got more bigger portfolios and like solved all those, all those problems in order to grow.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it was one of those things where the biggest thing that happened to me was, and this is why I'm so good at this when it comes to coaching, this certain aspect is my niche, is I stopped being the victim. I was the victim mentality, scarcity, for 20 plus years. And it wasn't until I took full ownership, and like Jocko Willink says, extreme ownership of my faults and where I played in and the stories that I created around that allowed me to not let that control me anymore. See, the big issue with people, right? You coach enough people, you're around, you talk to a million people like I do. The biggest issue about everything is that the things that they keep hidden in the closet that don't let anybody see, they think is doing them good, is actually the things that are actually holding them back from everything they ever want. Mm-hmm. It's not until you move it in the light and let it not own you anymore that it doesn't matter. And that's why if you ever see me at an event, I introduce myself as, hey, divorced, former alcoholic, homeless, drug addict. Nice to meet you. I'm Austin Linney.
That really makes you opens your ears a little bit, right? Then you start to look, where the heck's this guy coming? That's good, man. I think, you start out and you get in these grooves, I could only assume that after 20 years, 18 years, 17 years, whatever, of being an alcoholic, you get into that groove, right? It's what people do with their normal lives, whatever they're doing, they're around other people doing those same things and they never change, they never grow, they never make any, progress in their life. And then once you get around like the right people that are doing things that you want to do, that are, having success, like you did with those people with Airbnbs, now you have more units. It's like surround yourself with the right people. And I mean, you kind of manifest what's in your surrounding. That's what I've seen.
Well, I actually just had an epiphany while we were saying that, because my coach said this to me and it makes sense on so many levels. If you change the narrative to whatever's going on in your life or for whatever you've been through, as this allows me to impact other people with my story. Okay. Well, then it's like, great. Like, okay. I get it. Because here's the deal. And I say this and I've said it on a couple of podcasts. I'm totally content that I was chosen. Like I was chosen because I was strong enough, and that makes me deemed worthy to go get other people. Because here's what's scary is the number one reason people don't change is because they're scared of judgment. And so if I don't have any judgment to you and I'm just trying to help you and there's no judgment, then you could share your story with me. And that way it might be the first time in your entire life that you've actually opened up to somebody and you don't feel looked down upon.
Yeah. To just be real and like your true self and what's actually bothering you. And I've seen that in my own life. Like I don't want to open up about my struggles. Like I started doing kind of YouTube videos sharing about like my portfolio and how I've been able to build up this number of units. But then like you can't always talk about the successes. It's got to be about the mistakes, because you don't get to the success without the failure. So I try to talk about those too, but it's hard, right? It's hard to like open yourself up and say, hey, this is where I'm vulnerable. This is where I'm weak. Like this is where I wasn't good enough. But like it plays into, like you're saying, if you're strong enough to get through those, you can then share that so others don't have to, take 20 years or, have to go through the drug addiction. Dude,
I get so many messages on my rants. Everybody's like, dude, you're angry as shit. And I'm like, no, I'm not. They're like, I don't understand. I'm like, no, I'm not. They go, who are you talking to? I said, my 17-year-old self.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. If people feel so triggered sometimes, like I don't know, people are just soft
if I can look, here's a straight up true story, because I have them, I know them. I can tell you story after story after story. I know guys that are friends of mine that are 23 years old that can retire in a year. This is a true story, like true story. And I would give everything up right now. All of it, everything I own, everything I think, to take the skills and the life lessons I have now and be 18 again. Cause I would, dude, at 21, I'd be a savage, bro. I'd be like 1,000 units, Airbnbs, but I had to walk my own path. And so my coaching, my podcast, everything is to give back to these younger kids, to give them the availability that I didn't have, right? If you can understand that life is about this, building a lifestyle and then building a business around it, not building a business and then building a lifestyle around it. It's as simple as that.
That is so good. And that's what I try to say. And that's what I aim for, because I try to keep like the down the road picture in mind, like when I'm making decisions today, to do just that, like build my lifestyle or build my business around my lifestyle so I can live and do what I want to do and not have to be limited by my lifestyle. And before we get into the real estate stuff, because I know there's a lot of good stuff to come, but I think you brought up a really good point. If you're, looking back, I have a lot of younger real estate investors in their 20s and even younger that listen to this show. And me myself have had some success, but also many failures too. But I'm 24, trying to build up my portfolio, and do that whole thing. So what do you have? Like, what advice? I mean, what one or two things that looking back to your younger self or to me and those younger investors trying to grow, what are some tips you have to those listeners?
So you can network, and I'm a great networker. You can be great at Airbnb. You can be great in multifamily. You can be great in business. You can be great in a lot of things. The most important relationship that you need to be in is the one with yourself. It's as simple as that. And it's a daily registering of how high are my personal standards. Because I'm going to let you in on a secret. The number one problem in America is everybody is really quick to point out the faults of everybody else, yet they don't want to look in the mirror. Because I'm going to let you know something right now. I did 75 hard. I did 150 days in a row just for shits and grins. Okay. In snow, no electricity, rain. And you know what I realized? My default now is straight gangster. I mean, seriously. And so my question to you is as simple as this. I don't care what your goals are, because your goals don't mean shit to me. You know what I care about? What are your values? What do you stand for? Because what you stand for and what your values are, that creates an unwavering barometer of who you are and what you're going to do no matter what external forces come your way. And one of my favorite sayings in the entire world is, I'm not worried about the wind because I make the motherfucking wind.
I like that.
Because here's the deal is we all do it when we feel like it. Winners show up when they don't want to. This is my 13th Zoom call today. I just have just as much energy as I did when I was 6 a.m. because I care, because I want to show up for you and your audience.
I appreciate you bringing it.
Well, what I'm saying is we are a society of showing up when we feel like it. That's not how it works. Yeah. That's not what creates success. And I would tell you this right now, talk to somebody that's lost a bunch of weight and seen it in other people. Health is the foundational pillar to everything. And if you can get real with yourself in the gym and your discipline in the weight room and what you put in your body, that will be the catalyst for every change in every movement of your life.
Yeah, man, that is so good. That whole last minute and a half when you were going was really good. I was getting goosebumps there, because I catch myself doing this all the time, right? Like looking out at your goals instead of into yourself and what you're doing to achieve those. And what you're saying is just for those listeners.
And one more thing on the value play, because this is the most important piece that I got from another guy we interviewed. Two things in the value sector that's very important. And I'll use a story to illustrate what I mean. If you see a guy next to you, let's say he's 26, let's just say, and he drives a Lamborghini. What's the first thing that we all say? Douchebag. Yeah. Right? Well, hold on. What if his father passed away and his father owned a Lamborghini and they worked on it their whole childhood, and he's worked his ass off to buy that Lambo? Now, that might not be the case, but it might be the case. And so be careful that you don't want other people to carry your same values. because what values to them and what values to you are two totally different things. So you live in your lane and you own your values and let them own their values. And the second thing is make sure that you don't live somebody else's injected values into your life. Mm-hmm. Meaning, that's all. Hey, Grant Cardone is here and I need 10,000 units and I got to drive this and I need a fucking helicopter. Yeah. Screw all that. Like, are you happy? Like, are you happy? Are you fulfilled? Are you creating impact?
That's so true. And I think that takes discipline too, especially now because, just on our phone, we see so much of that, right? We see on YouTube, 16, 20-year-olds renting Lamborghinis and, talking about however they made their money. And then you see Grant Cardone flying on the tail of his jet, GC and on his helicopter and on his Ferraris and Range Rovers and all this stuff. You see all these things, all this material gain of others. And then, you lose. And I'm very guilty of this myself. You lose, or in this case, I lose focus on what I'm actually doing. What are my values? Maybe I don't want a jet. Maybe I do. Maybe I just want to be able to travel with my wife. And when we have kids, be able to travel with them and just be free to do what we want to do. We don't, we can maybe fly first class instead of flying our own jet. But that's so good, man. Just look at what you have, look at what you value and stay focused on that. That's really good. I need to take that advice too. So, but we've been talking about that mindset and that's all really, great. I think that's like foundational. So I'm glad we started with that, about that mindset. And I had another question I wanted to ask too. Cause I saw in one of your videos, just preparing this video where you were just straight getting after it, like getting after the audience. And I loved it. And I loved it because it resonated with me. Like I played Division I football and like I survived that by just being tough and being the unathletic white guy on the field. Like I just had to outwork people just to be able to like hit the field as special teams. It was like backup linebacker and start a few games. So I love that. Like, can you speak how to wrap your mind around, and we talked about it a little bit, but just wrapping your mind around owning your problems to solve them rather than, putting out blame and, dishing it out.
It's one of those things where at the end of the day, there's a saying that got me sober. There's a saying that got me to lose weight. There's a saying that gets me up every morning. It's very simple. Something I live by. It's called nobody cares, work harder. At the end of the day, that's it, dude. Like when I lost 40 pounds and I went to go see my family, you know how many people commented that I look great? Nobody. They're living their own life. And every second that you blame somebody else is a moment that is taken away from who you truly are. And at the end of the day, the person that's in the trenches with you, whether that be your spouse or a business partner, that's the only person that matters. And the problem with goals, and don't get me wrong, I have my own goals too. But the problem that I think is crippling entrepreneurs and crippling young investors is their why is not big enough. And what I mean by that is my why is to lift up and impact every human that I come in contact with. Okay. So if that's my why, tell me when I stop. Tell me when I stop. I don't. I'm working an infinite sum game. You can't beat me. So when I don't want to, I do it anyway. When I don't want to get out of bed at 4 a.m., I do it anyway. When I don't want to be on that call, I do it anyway. But here's the deal. And this is why my coaching is so important in this aspect right here. I think life is in seasons. And I think that you have to understand when it's go season. And I think you have to understand when it's rest season. And I think you have to look at your year and you have to plan it accordingly. Like right now for me, it's locked in. Let's go. I think I'm building 7 businesses. I don't even know what's going on right now. So, yeah. but like that's now, right? And then guess what? In September, I've got some masterminds I'm doing, like I'm putting on. Well, that's my focus for that month. And it's a little more chill, hanging out, meeting people. But we think that we have to be revved up to 10 at all times. It doesn't work that way. I tell everyone, every young kid I meet, you're 24 years old. You got 60 years. Are you building a legacy or are you building a transaction?
Yeah, this is the part I have trouble with myself. I'm sure that other people listening do as well. But I feel like I just work. And my wife's told me this too, but I just don't know when to stop. I don't know when to take my breaks. And I feel like, I'll go for 3 or 4 months, just absolutely grinding, not missing a day, waking up, hardly missing a day, working out, meeting. Like I set KPIs for myself. Like I want to analyze this many deals. I want to sit in this many offers, and trying to hit all of that and just being like very strict on myself. And when I'm trying to make excuses, it just in my head, I'm like, don't be.
Do you want to know why you do that? Because you live your life off of a scoreboard.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, maybe I do.
No.
I don't know.
No, you do. And it's not a bad thing. It just means that you're driven, which is not a bad thing. But ultimately, I think, and I've seen this a million times over, I think ultimately what we talk about and what we're kind of talking about right now with a bunch of my friends that we mastermind with is how can we be potent? It's not about time in the saddle. It's about effective time in the saddle.
Yeah. And so
the question is if you said like networking and getting around is like fielding a baseball team. Do you got a shortstop? Do you got a cleanup hitter? Like, if you have all those people, then stop networking. Like, seriously, It doesn't matter. Like, the people that you need will come into your life when you need them. You don't need to just collect players. Like, you know what? I just came up with an analogy. Treat your networking life and your week like you have a salary cap.
I like that. You're building your roster. You only got so much to spend. Yeah.
Same way with energy. What if I told you that you had a jar and for the week that's all the energy you had? Do you think that you would be more effective with your time?
Yeah. You'd spend it wisely, more wisely.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just, it's hard, man. Trust me, bro. I think I'm on like 46 Zoom calls this week. Man. So yeah, I feel you, bro. Like, yeah,
my whole thing is like, I just don't know when to take that pause and then get burned out, cause you just did the sprint. Like in quarter 1, I purchased like 72 units with partners, not on myself.
Sure.
I think we were talking about the syndication before this, but those like just added a lot to my portfolio in a short amount of time. It was like a big win. And then I'm trying to push forward and then not getting any, traction again in late Q1, early Q2. I'm like, man, I'm just hitting a wall. I want to ask you a question.
When's the last time you had fun? That wasn't real estate related. No, that wasn't real estate related.
This weekend, actually, my wife and I did start getting our dive certs. We got 1 dive left. We got 2 in this weekend. So that was a good time. And we've like dove some springs, which pushed me to get that because that's something we could do together. But 2 or 3 weekends ago when we dove that spring locally, which pushed us to get our dive license, was like the first weekend I didn't do anything. And since probably like, I don't even know, probably like October, November of last year.
How did you feel during that week?
I honestly felt really good that weekend.
How'd you feel on Monday?
And that's the part. Like I didn't know how to get back on track after that. And so the last 2 weeks, it's been like, man, I had a lot of fun and then can't get back on track. It wasn't for me, it wasn't like an instant refresh to come back, hit it harder. Cause I knew it was like, man, I got to get back to my, meet my scoreboard or whatever it was. So it felt heavy coming back on Monday, kind of when the weekend was so refreshing.
Sure. I totally get it.
So
I'm going to keep that in my chamber for later on in the conversation.
All right. We're going to come back to it. All right. So let's revert now. We talked the mindset and that was valuable for me. I was taking notes and I'm probably going to go back and listen to that myself. But digging into your real estate portfolio so we can get an idea of that, how did you get started, buy your first property and get the ball rolling?
Man, we had the hardest time. I was a bartender and server, and I read Rich Dad Poor Dad when I was 17. It changed my life. I knew I wanted to do that. I wasn't ready, man. I was scared. Like if I would have told you, if anybody knows the Austin market, like fucking 15 years ago, could have picked up a house. We didn't. Long story short, FHA wouldn't approve it because they wouldn't fix the roof. It was a whole thing. But I could have picked up a 4-bedroom house with 2 living rooms on a corner lot for like 140. That same house is probably worth like 650, 700K right now. Yeah, triple. Yeah. It's all relative. But that happened for like 7 years. And we kept having deals fall through. And we wound up finally buying a house in San Antonio. And right when we bought it, My ex-wife got a job offer to run Texas for her company. So she moved to Houston. So I was renting out one of the rooms while I was working 80 hours a week with an air mattress. Like I was highfalutin, man. We had an air mattress and everything. And then I upgraded to a trundle bed and an air mattress. So we were getting fancy. And then I was cleaning everything. I was working full-time job. And then I thought to myself, I said, hey, you know, what if I rented out the whole house? Like, is that a thing? Can I do that? And I was like, I think I can. Like, you know, we traveled a little bit with Airbnb. So I rented out, I put the whole house on. We rented first weekend. I stayed at my buddy's apartment. He had nothing in the back bedroom. And I slept on an air mattress with my dog and in the air mattress. And I was working like 16-hour days. And I rented out the first weekend. I got like $340. And I was like, this is fucking awesome, man.
That's a good feeling when you see it coming.
So I was making money at work and then I rented out the house and I was like, this is awesome. So that first year in like 5 months, I did like 11 grand gross. And I was like, okay, like something's here. Right. And so I started the new year and I talked to a friend of mine who was a bartender and buying a house. And we bought a house and I put in half and we went to Europe for on a one-way trip for like 2.5 months right before we bought the house. And we bought the house and then I went to Europe, and we were going to put a long-term renter in there. And I was in Europe, I was traveling and every renter he kept like falling through. And I was like, this is killing me, dude. I mean, like, this is killing me. I'm paying the mortgage. So we wound up deciding we were going to come back to America, and we came back to America. And I was in a furniture store an hour after I got off the plane. And I was like, hey,
trying to furnish it.
Yeah. I was like, hey, this is about to be very quick for you. Just stay with me. And I was like, I need this, and this. It was a wholesale furniture company. And I said, I need it here this afternoon, make it work. So we furnished and set up the whole house and got it on an Airbnb in 48 hours. And awesome. I rented out the first week of spring break for $1,450 for 7 days. And I was like, hot damn, we are in business. And so I was like, yeah. So then I bought another one. I picked up a house for $50,000 across the street from one of my houses. We put 50 into it and we started renting it out. And so I had 3 Airbnbs. I was working 2 jobs and I was cleaning every Airbnb. So I was cleaning at 4 a.m.
This sounds exactly like how my wife and I started when we had 3 Airbnbs. She was a full-time doctor student. I was full-time in the military.
Yeah. I was I was cleaning at 10 o'clock at night. I was cleaning at 4 a.m. We did $113,000 gross. And I was like, dude, this is amazing. But I was dying. Like I was still responding to every guest. All I had was keys, no electric locks, the whole 9. Like I was just doing everything wrong. And I joined that mastermind, and the first call, I was like, yeah, I got 3 Airbnbs, and I responded.
What mastermind was this? Was this only short term?
No, it was called M1. It was just an entrepreneurship. And at first call, I'm like, yeah, I got 3 Airbnbs, and I respond to every guest, and I'm using keys, and they were like, no. And they're like, do this. And I put all those systems on. I got keyless entry, the camera. I got the automated messaging system. I did a couple things. I put, the sheets that had all the directions on it, and I got done, and I was like, oh my God. I could have like 40 more of these. This is easy. And it was just getting around those amazing people, dude, that changed my whole business.
That's awesome, man. So what is your real estate niche now? Are you doing the same thing? Are you doing long-term?
So the Airbnb space is kind of like the girl that I really hate dating. Here's what I know about the Airbnb space. I love the lifestyle portion of it. I hate the day-to-day. I hate it. Mm-hmm. And so we scaled up with a previous company. We scaled up in 6 months to 27 properties in 7 states. It was banana town. Like I was flying across the country, setting up units. We set up 5 units in 3 states in 7 days.
Holy cow. That's insane. Was this all the Northeast where you could just run to each one?
No. It was 1 in Texas, 2 in North Carolina, and 3 in California. Yeah.
That's crazy. So are these like short-term rental arbitrage, or are you purchasing?
Well, some were arbitrage, but we were managing property for investors. So, long story short, I left that business. We had different opinions of where the business was going. I was very unhappy. I lost $26,000. It was my first time to ever lose money in real estate. And I had some soul searching to do. I really lied to myself about certain tasks I wanted to control in the business. I think I was trying to prove that I was something I wasn't. And I wound up really beating myself up for a bunch of days. I had a friend call me that I respect. And he said, "Hey man," he said, "let me ask you a question. You go to business school?" "No." "You got a master's degree?" "No." "I dropped out of college 3 times. He goes, "Okay. Well, guess what? You just went to business school. You're good." And it was like the thing that changed me around. And I wound up going to work for private equity from an old friend I went to high school with. And I worked private equity, lending money to new construction guys and small developments. So I learned the money aspect of the world, which changed my life, how money works and all that stuff. And I was done with Airbnb. I was done, dude. And I went to a meetup, and lady says, "Well, I'm working on this project." And I was like, "Okay, like I do Airbnb. It's cool. I can handle it." It's a 50-unit shipping container hotel. And I was like, "What?" "Oh yeah." I was like, "Oh man, yeah."
We got to break this down.
Well, here's what's crazy is actually that was what got me back in the business. So it made me think like, okay, obviously the business is not done. Obviously the business is not done with me, even though I'm done with the business. So long story short, I was on an Airbnb call in a friend's group who trains people to do Airbnb. On that call was my future business partner. And I kind of wooed him.
The people just come into your life.
I kind of wooed him for like 8 months. He's in the military too. Actually, he's a helicopter pilot in Hawaii. So young dude, great family man, great human being, loves tax code, loves spreadsheets, which is totally not me. So we're a great match made in heaven. And I said, "Hey man, you want to do this? Like, let's do this." This woman wants. So long story short, this woman lost her financing because of COVID. So we didn't follow through with the project, but it got me thinking. We were about to scale up in March of last year, and we were at like 7 properties, and we were ready to like take the world on. And COVID happened. And I sold a property. I had a client sell 4, and then I had another client sell 2. So they sold all their properties. So we went down to like 1. And then that client,
they would have just had out to like April or May. It was just like on Donkey Kong.
Yeah. So that client moved back into his property recently. So it was perfect because my business partner just had a baby and he moved to Hawaii, and I was doing my own thing. I just got divorced right after COVID. So I was doing my own soul searching, and then I kind of grew my coaching business. And, he asked me one day, he said, "Hey, what do you want to do with this thing? Like, I'm busy, you're busy. Like, what do you see?" And I said, "Listen, it's got to make sense. It's got to make sense for my lifestyle." And so what we decided to do, because I spent 20 years in hotels and hospitality, I sold wine for 20 years. I know all that stuff, and I've traveled a bunch. So we actually only work with clients that do large scale operations. And so let's say you have a shipping container hotel. Let's say you're converting a hotel. I've got a client right now who just bought 7 houses on a lake in Montana. We're doing every one of those. Like, he's talking about doing a yoga retreat with teepees, and he wants to buy a blimp, and he wants to, this is not a joke. I'm not making
those things
up.
Bring in the money, like those camps like that.
Yeah. And
those
so he owns a place in Colorado, Montana. He wants to buy a blimp, and he wants to take the guest in a blimp from Colorado to Montana. Like, that's the kind of people I want to work with. And so the problem is these projects take a long time to get off the ground. So like, he bought the properties, but we're not doing it till next summer. Right. Yeah. And so I'm just making sure that I no longer want to do the 3-2 houses. Like, I want to do something that's going to move the needle to our bottom line. Because when we looked at our business, we said, listen, what if we did 10 of these luxury properties instead of 40 of these other kind? And we were able to handle the scale and create a net cash flow off each property of $2,000 to $4,000. That makes more sense for our lifestyle. And that's the direction that we're headed in the company.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that strategy much better, to have like more higher grossing, or to have less higher grossing properties that then take less to manage than, a portfolio that's 4 times the size and makes just as much. If you could have less, but make more, just like you're saying, it's the lifestyle.
Well, not only 4 times the size and less, but because it's higher end, it takes less nights to make the money you need. So you're actually, I would imagine you're
actually working less. And
you're actually working less. Yeah. Yeah. It's more big hits. Yeah. Dude,
that's what you're talking about. That's why before the show, you're talking about, let's like do 4 high-end townhomes or condos or something like that right there.
Yeah. Well, not to mention something very important in the Airbnb space. The higher the price goes, the level of clientele goes up with it. And you're getting into a market where, I'll be honest with you, they don't really complain that much. And so, but
with that, I don't have any high end. Our expectations higher to where everything has to be perfect? Because I think that's what people assume. Honestly, I kind of do. And I've stayed more towards the, 250, 300 max a night kind of properties. My highest one is like high 200s, low 300s with the pool that sleeps 12 people. So, I mean, you're getting a lot for your money there.
Yeah, it's relative. I mean, location and all that stuff. But I think the thing that I beat, every time I do an Airbnb talk, everybody thinks I'm trying to talk them out of it. I'm not trying to talk you out of it. I'm just trying to get you to understand that you don't need 15 properties. You need 3 good properties and you can be financially free.
Yeah. This is what I love. This is like my favorite thing I love talking about. It sounds like you have figured this out too. Like my passive income, like cash flow after, like off of, what was it? 11 units with, at that point, was it 5 Airbnb units? Yeah. Before this one, it was 6 Airbnb units, got me to surpass my W-2 income with net cash flow, just off of like 6, like Airbnbs that were moderate houses, $200,000 or less in the Panama City area, not even Panama City Beach. That was close to the beach. So I'm 25 minutes off the beach, $200,000 or less house off of, 3 properties with 6 units, and financially free. If I didn't have to, if I wasn't in the military at that point, I could have said, all right, I'm not showing up to work anymore. It doesn't work like that though for me.
Well, that's why people don't understand. I interview guys all the time. I just did one 2 days ago. Like, he's in the military as well. Like, his wife quit his job. They got 1 Airbnb in the Smoky Mountains.
That just pulls in probably $100K a year.
Dude, he's like, bro, you don't even understand what's going on over there. He's like $7K net in August. And you're just like, that's all you need. You're good. Like, you don't need 10.
That pays your bills. Like if 3 gets you financially free, what would 6 or 10 do? Right. I mean, that's sending you around the world. But
what do they do? Like, what do they do? They want the unit. They want the unit count instead of the net.
They see Grant Cardone. So this is something I've been talking a lot with somebody really close to me, and we've done deals together now too. Is it's like, we got to stop focusing on deal count. We got to stop thinking about unit count, whatever. Just let's focus on our net cash flow. Like, what can we let's move the needle internally and not focus on that external number. Because the unit count is just something you say, like, on podcasts or on your bio to make you sound good. But if you've got 200 units and you're making, $25 to $50 of cash flow per unit because you're, buying bad deals, then you're really less financially free than that one guy with one Smoky Mountain house.
I'll do you one better. Had a meeting last week with a dude sitting in his house in Dallas, Texas. A homeboy brings in $250K a month residual income. Do you think he gives a crap how many houses he has? Dude is paying straight cash for houses. We have it twisted. All of it twisted. There are people out there that I know that own a 50 unit by themselves that bring in 10 to 12K a month cash flow. That's way more attractive to me than owning 0.0% of 400 units.
Yeah. And that's something I've thought about too and talked about with this same guy. It's like, we're in the syndication together, deal together, but it's like, man, do we want to keep syndicating and getting like smaller chunks of big deals? Or do we just want to, do this Airbnb thing where we can do, less deals, manage less, and have higher cash flow? Like, To be honest, like one house.
And then what they don't tell you is that on that Airbnb business, because the cash flow is so great, if you were to go and sell it at 20 to 30 units, the multiplier that you would get on the exit would be 10 to X of the syndication.
Yeah. Basically, are you saying like on the income approach if somebody's buying it based on the NOI?
Yeah, because, and not to mention that the hot girl at the party is Airbnb. And so you could sell that business like that.
Yeah. Have you been through any of these deals where they're like gone through an exit yet? Are they trading on like a cap rate similar to, multifamily? Like if it's a 50 unit Airbnb and you got a 50 unit multifamily, is the cap rate similar that you've seen?
Yes and no. It just depends where it's at, what people's appetite are. It's interesting. What I've been studying this year, I love to study different things. Right now I'm studying behavioral investing, like psychology of why people do what they do and so on and so on. But I read a book that changed my life and it was called Build to Sell. And it's a fictional story about a guy who has a marketing company for 13 years. And he goes to his mentor and he asks him, hey, I want to sell my business. What is it worth? And the guy says, nothing. And he goes, what? He goes, you're the business. It's worth nothing. And so basically this whole book is explaining to him that you as an operator are not special. The systems,
yeah.
And the systems and the products you create are the special sauce, right? And what people don't understand, and just to rub in this mindset thing on this talk, again, is that the skills that you pick up in the journey towards the outcome are the actual currency that matters. Has nothing to do with anything else.
That's good. That's good. Leave it to the mindset coach to just drop the bomb right there. Tie it all back together. That's awesome. Hey, before we get into the last section of the show, I wanted to ask about a specific deal so we can make this like a deep dive into this deal. What I read about was this 300 unit hotel
Where's everybody getting this from? Where did I put this thing?
That's on your bio. Is it not 300? Is it actually zero or what's the deal?
No. I'll tell you the deal that I remember fondly because I built out the systems and it's more tangible for people to wrap their head around this. So my mentor found a 15 unit hotel in South Lake Tahoe that was owned by a church.
Oh, this is the one we were talking about beforehand.
It was owned by a church and it was operating at 10% occupancy. Okay. The hotel across the street was doing like, I want to say like 68, 75%. I think they did like 850,000.
And this was during COVID. Is that why?
This was a year. This was a year before COVID. So, or like 6 months before COVID. And he's like, dude, that's not even a nice hotel. Like if they're doing that, I know I can do that. And so his idea was, I'm going to turn this into a touchless hotel. Like we're going to have cameras. We're going to have keyless locks, like the whole system. And so they didn't really have anybody that did that. And they realized that if they took, so let's say they bought it for $1 million. Okay. Well, if they took the occupancy, let's say they added $200,000 on the remodel. So 1.2, they added the occupancy went up to 40%. That's it. 40%, which isn't that hard. They would drop $1 million to the net worth of the property because the operating income would be spiked so much from the 15 years.
So they'd increase it by $1 million, the value.
And so, so I went in and I built every listing for that hotel. I kind of coordinated the whole thing and built it out. And
which is an art, by the way. If you've never built an Airbnb listing, like it's a fine mix between art and science, right? There's certain things you got to hit, and then there's just part of it that's like, catching people's eyes. But it's psychology at its best. Yep. And long story short, it was very hard. It was very. Have you read this book?
Yes, I recommend it to every human being that I meet with Airbnb.
Super great. So it's for those of those not watching this on YouTube, it's called Optimize Your B&B. If you have any interest into Airbnbs or if you have them, like you have to read this book. It changed the way I did like my whole Airbnb business. And I grew probably 20% of revenue in like the first month to two. It was crazy. It's like immediate impact.
No, I agree. It's amazing. And basically, he lived like an hour and a half away, had a cleaning team. I'm not going to lie to you guys. It was hairy. It was hairy there for, getting it off the ground, putting it on booking.com, putting it on, all these platforms, meetings and softwares, like making sure like it was the biggest thing I've ever done. And I want to share the most important part of that story. And I'm not saying this is the way you need to operate. I'm just saying for me, I did it all for free. And he didn't have the money in the budget. He's a good friend of mine. He's my mentor. And everybody asked me why you would do that. Well, first of all that matters is the result and what I learned in the process. The second thing is because I've done that, I can say I did it. And now I can go do other things. And so
now it's on your resume as a 300 unit.
Apparently, I've got to go beat up. I've got to go beat up my website designer. That's the call I'm going to have right after that. And I didn't even think anything of it because you're the second person that mentioned to me, and I'm like, I don't know what to talk about. So,
no, that's huge though, because I'm literally trying to do the same thing right now. I just so I think when we first talked, I told you about the 14 unit. I was bring on and full price offer. Like I thought we were going to move forward, and then these sellers they just acted like sellers in today's market. So that was a tough pill to swallow. But there's a 16 I'm looking to do.
Who runs the Airbnbs for you?
So I have a manager now. I self-managed for the first year. And now I have a local property manager. She's awesome. She has all the systems. I learned a lot from her in the beginning, and then, got even better as I read this book we were talking about. And then the whole time she's building her business and implementing the systems, and she's got the cleaning crew, the contractors, and she treats it like I'm like deployed now to where she handles everything, or we're getting to be that way. So she's really good, but we still talk about, things like this and still involved and try to just keep a pulse on the business, where occupancy is and all that kind of stuff. But I'm doing this on the 16 unit now, thinking about building out all the systems. Like you're saying, like if I have 16 and then another 7, I'm in at like 23 units. Do I just build kind of like my own management team where I have, the cleaners on W-2 and then, keyless entry to make that part easy. And I have contractors too, because I do rehabs here. So, I'm thinking like all the things will be in place.
Do you know a guy named Mike Sorgan?
No.
Okay, I'm going to introduce you to him. He just bought his second hotel, and he just did this entire thing. And he teaches Airbnb. Like he's just a good guy to know. He'll be able to teach you, just kind of give you some advice and everything. They run. He didn't put any money in that first deal. So he came with the systems, and he came with the idea and the design and built it out, and he's ownership in that hotel. And so awesome. At the end of the day, an interesting strategy for you on the 16 unit might be you to go ahead and acquire the property and then pitch the idea of the hotel and use somebody else's funds to run it.
Yeah. That could be, but I feel like I have the systems already, you know what I mean? And not like I'm an Airbnb expert, but I feel
like. Is it a big remodel or no?
It's so like the plumbing, electrical, roof, water heaters, all that has been redone. So at this point, it'll just be cosmetic and furnishing and, probably paint the building, give it a nice look, and then redo like the landscaping.
Are you ready? Are you ready to run a 16-unit hotel? Mentally?
So that's another thing I've been talking with my buddy who we might partner on this thing with is like, man, I could, while we're under contract or whatever, the early renovation period, try to build out my own kind of management system or management team that handles the day-to-day, maybe get a full-time VA that's answering the calls and the guest management and the, tenant requests and things like that. And then tools like Smart B&B and Price, Wheelhouse, Price Lab, stuff like that would help. But of course I'm going to have to be involved in it. So working full-time and then pretty much turning into running that business would be a challenge, but it'd be fun. I
think the best question is, how does your wife feel about it?
Oh man, she knows. She probably heard you say that. I can hear her.
No,
in there thinking about that now. Oh, you're just going to make me do everything. I'm like, no, babe, we can do it together. We're a team. We're partners.
Yeah, no, dude, here's the true story about that. If executed properly and the kinks are worn out, like you're talking about taking a traditional 16 unit and literally supercharging it with gasoline and lighter fluid.
Yeah.
Like if that
on there. Yeah.
I mean, seriously, like let's just say a 50% occupancy at a decent per night rate, dude, you're, the value of that property is going to be. And then more importantly, if you look at it from this context, whether you want to or not, you have a business in a box to sell to somebody.
That's true. Yeah. So at that point on the exit, it's more of selling a business. Exactly. Because he's kind of running it as a passive deal right now, renting out 10 to 12 units himself, managing it, collecting rent weekly, having people in there for, a month, 2, 3 at a time because they're workers or whatever. But yeah, I think, supercharging it is a good way to put it because that's how it's going to operate. And, the income's going to at least double, probably 2.5 to 3 times based on that. Cause you could even add an extra unit. Cause you want
this is on the beach, right?
Yeah. I mean, a stone's throw, maybe a stone's toss.
So what I would do, and I did this on some houses in San Antonio, is I would have separate listings for each room. And then I would have one listing that listed the whole property.
So that's how all my Airbnbs right now, except for the 8 unit, are like that. And they're 2 units. They're all 2 units with a house and a guest house, mother-in-law suite. And it's the 3 listings on all those. And I was going to do the same thing on the 8 unit for a big group, wedding, whatever, bachelor party. Hopefully, punch holes in the wall, but do it like that. And then, man, I love that. The multi-listing strategy is awesome. Huge money maker.
Dude. We had 2 houses across the street from each other. So, 5 bedrooms,
tell people what this strategy. I don't know if I've talked about it on this podcast, but I know I've talked about it on other podcasts.
I owned a 3-2 that had 5 beds. And then I owned the house across the street that was 2 bedroom, 1 bath that had 3 beds. And so it was coming up on spring break. It was a very popular time in San Antonio. So just for shits and grins, I put both houses together. Hey, you get 3 bathrooms, you get 8 beds, you can rent it out to a group. And I actually rented it out for, I want to say like $1,500 or $1,800 a night for like 5 nights to a French convention group. And all the adults had their own bed and they were totally happy. And I made a ton of money. And then I just turned the listing off. And every time there was a big event coming up, I would just turn it on and turn it off. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a game changer when you have, we were on a clubhouse the other day. If you have just 1 bedrooms, then you can create 3 listings together and then you have a 3 bedroom.
Yep. Yeah, it's really good. And it helps to maximize your occupancy and maximize your revenue, especially when they're all on the same property. Because even if you have a vacant unit, one of those other units might be pulling in, or you get like the highest and best use if they book the whole place. So you get, and you could just turn that bigger listing on for the weekends. Yep.
Yeah. Tons of
good stuff. I love that strategy. That's made me like, This is one of the things that manager I was telling you about taught me, like, as I was opening my first listing. She's like, when you guys move out of this house, because our first listing was a mother-in-law suite in the first house we bought. And she's like, when you leave this place, you need to rent it as 2 separate units and then a whole listing. So I went on TDY to like Ohio. We did that for a month and made like, I think it was like $4,000 or $5,000 at the time in like that 1 month. Whereas like the one listing was bringing in like $1,200, $1,800. I was like, oh my gosh, just made so much more money. It's awesome. But that's an awesome tip. So last section of the show here, I know we're getting into over an hour now. So we'll start wrapping this thing up and get into the
Fortune 5.
All right. This is the Fortune 5. Austin, what is the biggest thing that has contributed to your success?
I met my mentor through DMs and he said he had 15 minutes He lived in Sacramento, so I hopped on a plane and I flew across the country to meet him for 15 minutes. He was a millionaire at 26 or something like that. He's 32 now. And he looked me dead in the face and he said that you and I are no different. I just got started before you with better people around me. And it was the first time in my life that I realized I didn't have to idolize anybody because my gifts were my gifts. And I stood toe to toe with that human. And we wound up having a 2-hour meeting instead of 15 minutes. And that conversation changed my life.
That's awesome. I love it. So be willing to get on that plane and go have those conversations, get around the right people. That's awesome. So what's been the biggest mistake so far for you that's turned into a learning lesson?
Thinking that it mattered that I had 27 units in 7 states, and not realizing that maybe we should have been tracking the money better. Because we were bringing in a ton of money, but we didn't have any money. And so that what I didn't tell you about that $26,000 that I lost was those 2 guys in that business were the 2 dudes that gave me the freedom and opportunity and motivated me to get sober. Mm-hmm. So because of those 2 humans, I'll lose $26,000 every year for the rest of my life. Yeah.
Yeah, that's huge. And that's awesome. I want to, man, there's so many good things in this episode today. I think at a separate time, we're just going to have to do like a deep dive into like that 15 unit deal and break it down and show some numbers.
Yeah, for sure.
And maybe if the 16 unit goes too, but man, awesome lessons. Thanks for sharing that for sure. What is your favorite book you'd recommend for someone starting out? Real estate? Anything really. I guess it could be real estate.
So my favorite, I'll leave it open-ended. No, my favorite book ever. I bought it 50 times for everybody I come in contact with is What You Say When You Talk to Yourself.
That's the name of it. What you say.
What you say when you talk to yourself. It's like $13 on Amazon. It's basically teaches you how the words that you say control who you are. And meaning that 80% of what we operate on a daily basis is our subconscious mind.
It's just self-thought. Yeah.
If your subconscious mind does not, like we have synapses in our brain. And when things happen over and over again, they think, oh, I need to remember that. I'll put that away. And so if those thoughts are negative, then they remember negative. And so if those thoughts are positive, then they think positive.
That's awesome. So basically, if you talk to yourself in a positive light, reaffirm to yourself.
I give you an example that you can that's easy to digest. If somebody wants to get sober or somebody wants to stop smoking cigarettes, you don't say, stop smoking cigarettes. It doesn't work that way. What you say is, for 30 days straight, 3 times a day, you say, I'm healthy, I don't smoke cigarettes. And then what happens on like day 23 or day 30th, you have a cigarette in your hand and go, I don't know why I have this. I'm healthy. I don't smoke cigarettes. Yeah. You got to change the narrative in your head first before you can change. One of my dudes I love, he says, you got to put it in your head before you put it in your hand.
That's good. We were talking beforehand too. I mean, we've had like a full conversation before we started recording, but we're talking about like, what we do in my morning routine. And I mentioned in their affirmations, and that's something that's been big for me. And I'm trying to be more consistent with it, to even say like in the morning and the night, because those are the things, those are like relationship goals. Those are like my values laid out on paper to remind me of like why I'm doing what I'm doing. And just like the days I actually do it, I feel better. I'm like, all right, this is why I'm going through this sucky part. All the sellers denying me. So
for sure.
That's good stuff. Also, outside of real estate, what do you like doing? What are your hobbies?
I'm a traveler, man. We just got back from a wedding in Florida. We were in Costa Rica before that, Nashville before that. I love to travel. I love to talk to people. I love experiences. The goal is to have multiple houses in a lot of different countries. If anybody wants to work, if anybody wants to work and travel and create businesses overseas and learn how to, grow businesses and save money on taxes, there's a book I finished recently called Nomad Capitalist. It's an amazing book, Nomad Capitalist. And that basically describes my entire, what I want.
All right. I've written down both these books now. I'm going to go look at them on Amazon after this. Yeah. All right. Last question here, Austin. Where can people find out more about you and connect with you?
So if you go on my website, austinlinney.com, that's a good place that has a podcast and everything like that. On Instagram, Austin Linney, Facebook. If you DM me, I will reach back to you. I promise. It's what I do. I just want to support everybody. And at the end of the day, we have two amazing podcasts because I'm a masochistic, apparently. I have two podcasts, but one is called Construct Your Life, which I love that podcast. I love the stories we get to share. And then the other one is with Anthony from Victus Capital up in Minnesota. And it's called Brain Dump. And it's a newer podcast we've had out for 2 months. We study the philosophy and psychology of success. And it's all about mindset and how to create just that success for you and you alone. So if people go check that out, that'd be awesome.
That's awesome. You actually listened to what's the first one called? Construct Your Life?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Construct Your Life. I listened to that one a few times in preparation just to hear what you're all about. Good stuff on there. So definitely check that out. And then guys, if you're interested in learning more about Austin, definitely go check out his website. And when you read that he's done the 300 unit hotel, just know that his website developer is getting a scolding, but the 50 unit is awesome. And it's not about the unit number.
I might just leave it on there to manifest.
Keep starting these things. Yeah. It's not about the unit count. It's about the other things, but this is awesome. This has been an awesome show, man. Thanks for coming on, being real with us, sharing your story. And man, we talked about so much. I just want to keep talking, but we're like over an hour now, so I don't want to take your whole night. But this is awesome, man. We'll have to do this again sometime and dig into some more of this Airbnb stuff.
I can't thank you enough, man. I appreciate it.
All right, man. And we're out of here.
Hey, thanks for listening. If you like the show, if you found value in it, please go to iTunes and leave a rating and review. And if you want to check out more on your multifamily journey, go to multifamilyjourney.com where you can get free resources to start your journey and figure out your path. That's multifamilyjourney.com. But more importantly, go take action today towards your financial future. See you next time.